Welcome back to Monday Musings, a casual conversation of culture and theology. I'm Justin Ely.
And I'm Daniel Chen. We're just a couple guys talking about some stuff.
And the stuff that we've been talking about in Season 2 are Christian cliches. It's been fun.
It has been fun.
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten pretty good feedback from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've, some of you guys have sent in some of your ideas, and I think we're going to actually do some of those.
Yeah.
So keep emailing us, and we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, and I forgot to tell you about this. We were talking about this podcaster in my community group last week, and during the community group, David and Susan Lilly kept on having all of these food ideas, and we were like, we might have to add a segment to the podcast on like Food with Susan segment.
We should.
So Susan, if you're listening, it could happen.
Yeah.
Because right now
that.
we have two segments. We have the life hack and everything else. But we could add more,
Sure, why not?
I mean, this thing could take off. And,
Yeah, for sure.
So along with that, we start with a life hack.
So the life hack I have for you guys this morning is something my mom swears by, and I really do think it works. It works for me at least. So anytime you have a bug bite or a rash or something like that, apparently vitamin E is really good for your skin. And you can, take it as a pill and swallow it. But what you could do is you can get like the pills that are like liquid gel in the middle, and you could just like poke a hole in it and just put it on your skin.
Yeah.
And it'll stop the itching, and it'll start to heal whatever bug bite or whatever it is. And so I know, I do it on, I sometimes get rashes or a bug bite or whatever, and I'll put it on there and it works, but it really works for my daughter too. She got stung by a wasp about a month ago.
Ouch.
And, vitamin E on it, swelling went down within a couple hours. It was like pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
So,
yeah. I think my parents used that on me a few times as a kid.
Yeah. So it was like it was one of those things like sometimes how you do. Well, I know we're parents now, and this is probably going to be us, but it's like your parents tell you like, just do this. And you're like, that's
really?
Like, that's not a thing.
Really?
And then it's like you do it and you're like, oh, that actually works.
Vitamin E,
okay.
thanks.
This is one of those things for me.
Yeah.
So,
That's a good life hack.
yeah.
Well, so for the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about different Christian cliches that we hear in our culture that aren't always the most accurate. We started with this idea of we're all God's children. Last week we talked about kind of this prayer like God be with him or be with her, And we're going to tackle 2 today because we keep getting cliches added. Thank you for all the feedback. We got some ground to cover. But this morning we want to talk about kind of 2 of these cliches. One, God will never give you more than you can handle. And the second is let go and let God.
Yeah.
And Daniel, you were saying these kind of cliches are almost like the inverse of each other.
They are. Yeah, I think it's addressing almost the same types of issues, but it's coming from really 2 different points of view. And I think they're actually kind of saying the opposite of each other, but they're both really common Christian cliches. And so even the previous 2 is stuff that I didn't hear a ton when I was a kid, but these I did hear just not even at my church, just people say all the time.
Right.
And I even see it on Facebook now quite a bit, just from, people I know, people posting something and then saying, I've let go and let God and look at whatever, or, but yeah, I think they are the inverse of each other.
I mean, you were almost saying God will never give you more than you can handle is almost like this works-based thing. Like you gotta, buckle up and deal with it, and then let go and let God is this like overly mystical kind of faith side of things.
Right.
Don't do anything, just kind of
be, and then
Jesus take the wheel.
It's like, yeah, and we'll get into it, but let go, let God, like, it makes no sense to me. Like, okay, because you didn't let go, so God couldn't work in your life at all. But now that you've let go, you've somehow allowed God to work in your life. Like, I don't get what that is saying. And so, we'll get into more of the breakdown of each one. But yeah, I think they're kind of 2 sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so let's start with what do you think people mean by this phrase? And I guess we can start with God will never give you more than you can handle. What do you think people mean?
Yeah, so I think what people mean by it is that in the context of how I've normally heard it is when something bad happens to someone, right? Someone's going through some kind of suffering, and they're just saying, this is happening to you because God won't give you more than what you can handle.
Man,
or
God must know how tough you are because he took both of your parents from cancer when you were 8 years old. Wow. God will never give you more than you can handle.
It's like
a compliment. It's like this backwards compliment to your
Yeah.
toughness. You must be super spiritually tough because God knew you could take a punch to the gut.
Yeah, or the in the also the flip side of that, where it's like, well, put on your big boy pants now because God won't give you more than you can handle, so you just tough it out and tough through it. And I think most people are saying like, don't be defeated by your suffering because God won't get you more than you can handle. And it's funny because both of these statements, in all fairness, have some amount of truth to them, right? And once again, we've said this a ton. They're well-intentioned in the meaning.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think they have some disastrous consequences of if you say this to people, what actually can happen if people start to really buy into this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really, I read this article a while ago about just a plea for Christian fathers, namely talking about fathers of sons, sorry. And one of the things it said was, man, I really long for dads that are more tender with their sons, and when their sons, when their little kids fall down and get hurt, they don't just say, suck it up, be a man. They are tender toward them. And I feel like this is kind of the overflow of kind of a lack of tenderness culture where we don't just weep with those who weep and mourn with those who mourn. And we don't, in general, I think Christian American culture can be really bad about just letting people kind of sit in their pain and sit with them in their pain. Right. And this almost it kind of excuses it away. Like, well, obviously you kind of man up and deal with it.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's kind of what people mean by that.
And sometimes I just think, we were talking about this a couple days ago, was I think some people just hear these Christian cliches. They don't know what to say when someone is hurting. And so they just throw these out there. Yeah. Because sometimes it's not even, there's almost no intention behind it. It's just like, I want to be helpful. Yeah. And I've heard this before, and this sounds nice, right? It sounds good. Yeah.
I think, one of the, if we could just hit something home with this podcast, is when you don't know what to say, don't say a cliche. Just say, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Just, you don't have to say anything. I think a lot of times we think we need to come up with some, motivational, no, just say, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And, I think we're fixers by nature, and we think they're telling me this because they want me to fix it. Right. And sometimes the best thing to say is, I'm sorry. Hey, I'm with you. You're not alone.
Yep. Period.
I love you. Yep. Period. Whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's okay. So if you're grasping at words, reach for those words. Don't reach for these cliches.
Right. Yeah. And then let go, let God. What do you think people mean by that?
Yeah, I think when people usually do it, it's like, I've been trying to, be successful on my own, or to be happy on my own, or to be satisfied, going after my own things. And so, just let go and let God, let go of your control and let Jesus take the wheel. Yeah. And once again, there's some truth to that.
Absolutely.
Right? But I think what people end up meaning by that is what I was saying earlier, is somehow we have, we're controlling God, and that if
I don't let go, God is not sovereign over my life.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's what what people actually start believing. Yes. Right. And so I think there is an element. Yes, when we have idols in our lives, we should let go of our control
and let God run our life. Let God submit to His leadership in our life.
But I think how people normally mean it is, I haven't been getting the job I want because I've been trying too hard.
Yes.
And so I need to let go and let God get that job for me.
Yep.
I really want that relationship, and I've just been trying so hard to date this girl, date that guy, but really I just need to let go and let God bring that girl into my life, bring that guy into my life.
Right, because once I let go, God is going to give me exactly what I wanted before anyway.
Yes. Right. Yes. And so I think if you use it in a theological sense, yes, like let go of your idols and start worshiping God.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, go for it.
But I think how most people use this phrase is in that, like, because I cannot attain my worldly desire on my own, I need to let go so God can attain it for me.
And I almost blame a lot of our churches for this cliche, because this is often how we structure like testimonies. Like the majority of times we hear, if you're in college ministry, it's the testimony of, I entered college just wanting to find a boyfriend or girlfriend, and I finally let go of that and gave it to God. And then, wouldn't you know, the next month, I started dating my future spouse.
Yeah.
And that's what God does to us. When we let go of things, he gives us our heart's desires. And it's like, okay, the problem with that is, that's fine, but give me a testimony behind that of a 6-year-old person who's never gotten married and always wanted it, but found out how God was enough by letting go of those desires, right? So yeah, I think a lot of times it's like, let go and let God give me what I wanted anyway because I let go.
Right.
Kind of manipulative.
It is. Yeah. I think both of these are a way for us. Both of these cliches are ways that we subconsciously trying to control God without realizing it.
Yep.
And I think that's the danger of it.
And I think one of the things we're seeing with a lot of these cliches, like you said, is they do have elements of truth to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the problem is we take like non-biblical language and we try to fit like a sub-biblical concept into it.
Right.
And it's like, it'd be better just to use biblical language.
Right.
So why do you think we should not use these phrases? We've talked a little bit about it. Maybe starting with God will never give you more than you can handle.
Yeah. I think, first of all, one of the reasons that I think, let me pull up this verse here, that this cliche started in the first place is because of 1 Corinthians 10:13. And let me pull that up so I can read it for us real quick.
I can read it if you want me to.
You have it? All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide a way of escape that you may be able to endure it.
Yeah. And so, once again, that's biblical language. That's in the scriptures. And we would say we agree with that.
Yep.
It says God will not tempt you more than what you can say no and to fight that sin.
Right.
But that's not how most people use the phrase. If you use it in that context, awesome.
Yeah, it's
go for it.
It's funny if you think about it. If someone struggling with pornography came up to you and was talking about it, it would be totally appropriate to say, well, God will never give you more than you can handle. You can say no to that temptation.
Yeah.
That is actually accurate based on 1 Corinthians 10:13.
It is.
But if someone comes up to you with, someone in their family just died or something, or they just got diagnosed with a disease, it's not accurate.
Right.
In a sense to say,
right.
God will never give you more than you can.
Yeah, and I think we tend to, we tend to view Christianity in light of our circumstances anyways, just in general. And we definitely do this here too, right? This is talking about sin, temptation.
Right.
And saying, God, like if you're a Christian, God has given you the Holy Spirit and he won't give you or there's no temptation that you aren't able to say no to.
Right.
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 But I don't know if I've ever heard, maybe that's a little far, but I rarely hear this phrase used in that context.
No, I don't know if I ever have.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's almost in terms of suffering.
Yeah, almost.
And so this I actually think is a really helpful verse and concept, a very helpful cliche to use in terms of temptation. It's,
yeah.
I think it's a horribly detrimental thing to say to someone going through suffering, because if someone's going through suffering, it could be the death of a loved one, but it could be you lost your job. It could be someone broke up with you.
Yep.
It could be you failed a test at school. And basically what it's saying is, well, you don't need to worry about your suffering. God won't give you more than what you can handle. And could you imagine, like, in the midst of horrible suffering, which, I think I've experienced some pretty deep suffering, but not as bad as some other people I've heard either.
Sure.
But I can think of my lowest point. I'm like, if someone said that to me, I just want to punch him in the face. It's just not helpful, right? Like this horrible thing happened to you. With a smile, God won't give you more than what you can handle. I'm like, how is that helpful?
Well, and it also seems to me to rob like the compassion of God.
Yeah.
As if he's like, he can handle it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what kind of God is that that's just kind of up there being like
because you can handle it, I'm just going to throw a bunch of suffering?
You can deal with this, so you can deal with this job loss, so I'm going to give that to you.
Yeah.
Johnny couldn't deal with the job loss, so I'll protect him. But since you're strong, I'm going to throw this suffering. It's like arbitrary and mean. Just not an accurate biblical picture of God.
Yeah, I agree.
And you were talking also before we started talking about Romans 5, how God uses suffering in our lives to mold us, right?
Yeah.
Romans 5, verse 3, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. So suffering has its place.
Right.
Being given more than you can handle in the sense of being utterly broken is actually something God uses to make you more like Christ.
Yes.
And that's like, if you miss that, so much of our Christianity is, it's not Christian, but it's pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
It's American, right?
Yeah, that's Americanism, not Christianity. And so it's like, a more accurate statement is God will give you more than you can handle to draw you closer to Him.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the whole point. Like, if you read, Tim Keller is struggling with cancer right now, and he put out this statement on social media asking for prayer. And it's like, man, this is how you should ask for prayer in suffering. But he asked for several things, but the last one was something like that God would take the suffering and He would wean us off the comforts of this world to love Him more truly.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's what suffering's supposed to do.
Yes.
So God does give you more than you can handle to give you what's best, which is Himself.
Right. And I think as you read through the Psalms, you have all of these ideas of woe is me. I've been thrown into the depths. I've been consumed by darkness, like these ideas that the psalmists say.
Yeah.
But if you read those Psalms, what it ends up leading back to is, but that's what drew me to God, right?
Right.
Because I think one of the things that, you see in your people's lives all the time. So there's like two aspects of this. One is like a emotional, like caring thing. Like this phrase isn't helpful for someone going through suffering, because what you need to do is not provide these like cliche solutions, but to mourn and suffer with them, right? Be with them. But I think from a theological point of view, it's exactly what you're saying, is that I even think about my own life. One of the times that it's most apparent to me that I need God. Well, it's not when I got the promotion at work.
Right.
It's when I realize I can't do this on my own.
Yes.
Right? The problem with Americanized Christianity is, we're told you can be whatever you want to be and you can do whatever you want to do it.
Yeah.
And as long as you put in the effort and the elbow grease,
yes,
you can do it. And so we take that to Christianity too, to say, oh, if something's wrong in my life, I just need to try harder. If I'm not spiritual enough, I need to be more spiritual.
Yep.
If I need, if I don't feel close to God, that's on me. I need to do it, and I need to do this. I need to do it. And it's all about your effort.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, we'll be about to hit the let go, let God side of it. There is an element of working in terms of faith, right? Like works are a part of faith, right? And so it's not that you do nothing, but I mean, the whole basis of our belief system is that we have sinned, and that is more than we can handle.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the basis of it.
Yeah.
Because we've sinned, we can't unsin. We can't make up for that sin on our own. That's why Jesus had to come and die and live the perfect life and die for our sin, rise defeating death and restoring our relationship to God. Jesus only had to die and rise because
you couldn't do it.
We couldn't do it.
Yeah.
That's like the basis of like the foundation of beliefs. In our sin, that's more than we can handle.
Yeah. No, that's well said. Yeah, I think that this kind of works-based approach really seeps into that that cliche. And, the other thing I was just thinking, kind of related to God will never give you more than you can handle, are all of the at least statements we make to people who are suffering.
Right.
Someone has a miscarriage. At least you were able to get pregnant.
Right.
Someone's kid dies. At least you had them for a season.
Yeah.
Someone loses their job. At least you had a job.
Yeah.
Like, we say all these things, and it's kind of originated from the same, like, God will never give you more than you can handle.
Yeah.
Just lack of compassion.
Yeah, for sure.
The other verse I thought of, John 16:33, Jesus is with his disciples on the night of the Last Supper, and he tells them, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world.
Right.
And I love that statement because, one, it was before he was crucified and resurrected, but he's already saying, I've overcome the world. Like, it's as good as done. But at the same time, he doesn't negate some translations say tribulation. In this world, you'll have tribulation. Like, he doesn't negate the pain that they're going to go through. But their hope is not, in this world you will have trouble, but God will never give you more trouble than you can handle. No, the hope is, I've overcome the world.
Right.
So our hope is not in our own strength to solve problems.
Yeah.
Our hope is that Jesus defeated the grave and one day will make all things new. So, yeah, this world will give us plenty of tribulations, and most of them will be more than we can handle on our own strength. But the good news is he's overcome the world, so we can rest in him.
Absolutely. I think giving someone that advice, God will never give you more than you can handle, only leads to two conclusions. Either, yes, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you look back and say, I did it. I don't need anyone else.
Right.
I only need
pride.
All I need is me.
Yep.
And it draws you away from God.
Yep.
Or you look at it and say, I tried my hardest and I could not get past it.
Failure.
So I must be worthless.
Yeah.
And I must not be good enough.
Yeah.
And what does that do? Draw you away from God.
Yes.
And I love that you brought in that hope, because really what we would say in the midst of suffering is we look to Jesus.
Yeah, your hope is not you.
Yeah.
It's in Jesus.
Your hope is not you. Maybe that's how we would summarize that.
Yeah.
Up. Your hope is not you.
Yeah.
Your hope is Christ.
Yeah.
And even if you're asking, well, why would God give someone suffering just to draw him to himself? And we have to realize, if you have $10,000 and you think that's great, well, God is $1 million, $1 billion.
Right.
And sometimes we don't want to let go of our $10,000 until we realize who we have in God. And
Absolutely.
So sometimes the suffering, makes us understand that better, that, when we do go through suffering, God is so much greater than when we had previously.
That's good.
And that we want people to see that how good and great and awesome and that God is.
Yeah.
And so that's why
Amen to
sometimes that happens.
Well said. So the other phrase, let go and let God, why should we not use this phrase?
So once again, if you use it in a good way to say, let go of your sin and let God be king of your life, we would say yes.
Go for it.
So if you're using it in that context. But once again, I don't think that's the context I see it in.
Yeah.
And I think we shouldn't use that because of two reasons. One, there's two sides of this coin. One, it says you can control God, like we talked about. And that means that you really don't care about God. You care about the things, right?
Right.
So when you use that phrase, are you caring about, is the end goal God or God's gifts?
Yeah.
Right? That's
Right.
two different things.
Yeah.
Or the flip side of it, if you say let go and let God, you're saying, I think some people take it to mean, well, then you don't need to do anything. All you have to do is sit back and God will just rain blessings on you and you never have to do anything.
Right.
Right? You never have to try. You never have to work. You never have to whatever. And I think, we talked about that. This is a little bit like of a faith and work conversation because we would say,
in an asterisk there of like a bad understanding of faith.
Yes, a bad understanding. Yeah. But a correct understanding, a good understanding of faith would say, like sola fide, right? That it's by faith alone. But we will also say in James, faith without works is dead.
Right.
Right? That works don't make your faith. Works prove your faith.
Yeah.
Right? Your faith will manifest itself in works. And so you can't just say, sit back, do nothing.
Right.
But works don't make your faith. You don't, it's not like you save yourself because of your works.
Right.
Right. But if you do have faith in God, it manifests itself as works.
Yeah.
Right. And it proves it. And so I would say, for those two reasons, I'd say that's why it's dangerous to use that phrase because you're either using it for materialistic gain or control, or you're saying, "Oh, I've relieved myself from all responsibility."
Right.
So
yeah, it's like you said. Like if you want to say, "Let go of your idols and let God be king," I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But I think the problem I have with the phrase, again, it's this like, I don't know what that means. That's my. It's like a Hillsong song or a Bethel song. I'm sorry. Half of the songs are these like strange illusions about water and like the desert and like it's like, what are we talking about here? Like I'm in the middle of the sea. I'm in this desert, and you get halfway through the song and you're like, what have I been singing? Where am I? Who am I? What's going on right now?
Give me something more concrete.
Yes, yeah. It's like the problem with some of the songs, and I'd say with this kind of cliche as well, is like when a phrase is like so vague that a Muslim would also be comfortable saying the phrase, it's probably not a good phrase. So like if it's like vague enough to where you don't really know what you mean by it. And I think that's the issue with this phrase. I think a lot of people, like we said, mean let go of your idols, let God be king of your life. Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I think the phrase is just kind of vague and confusing.
It's funny, but the thing is that everyone I've seen use this, it's almost always in terms of materialistic gain.
Yeah. Or let go of, and it is kind of, and I'm not accusing everyone of who uses this means this, but it is kind of what we said a lot of times of like, well, God will give it to you if you just let go first.
Right.
Then it's like what? Then are you really letting go? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't really let it go. That's right. A great point.
Like you still want it. Like,
yeah. And it's like, I think there is an element where if you can hold on too tightly to something and that just squeezes the life out of that thing.
Right.
But just because you let go doesn't mean that it's going to be yours.
Right.
Let go means you're okay with it not being yours.
But let go.
Most people say, well, if I just let go, then we'll get the thing. It's like in The Office when, do you know where I'm going with this?
Yes, I don't, but please go on.
When Phyllis is like giving Dwight advice about Angela, and she's just like, give her an ultimatum. If she says no, like, it's time to move on. And Dwight's like, okay, he gave the ultimatum. She didn't answer. And he's like, okay, I've moved on. How do I get her back?
Right.
That's like kind of what we're saying,
yes,
right?
Yes.
It's like, oh, I've let go of wanting that job. God, now you get it for me, which means you didn't let go of that job.
Right.
Or, once again, spouse, wanting a spouse, wanting whatever. And once again, I think it is detrimental because What do you say to the people who have let go of it but still desire it?
Right.
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 To someone who wants that job but never gets it.
Right.
To someone who, wanted to get married but never got married. To someone who wants kids but never had kids.
Yep.
What do you say to that person? Oh, you should have let more go. You should have let her go. You should have let more go. You should have let God be more God. It's too. It's just not helpful advice because, once again, if you're saying the let go of sin, let God be king of your life. Well, say those words or be more clear or walk through that more clearly.
Yes.
And I do agree. I think you're spurring thoughts in my head about it's just too vague.
Right.
Let go of what?
Right.
Let God do what? Or be what?
So maybe give us some more. If you're going to use the phrase, add some more words to it.
Yeah. Clarify. Give it some context.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Don't give me this vague. Yeah. Don't give us a song about deserts and oceans. Give us something a little more. So in conclusion, and we've kind of touched on some of this a little bit throughout, but instead of saying God will never give you more than you can handle or let go and let God, what are some other alternatives, more biblical phrases we could actually use?
Yeah. So for God will never give you more than you can handle. I think I would say two things. One, let people that know that you care about them are with them in their suffering. I don't know if I have a phrase, but just to say, you're not alone. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But also to point them to the hope in their suffering.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's okay to say something like, because of Christ, no suffering is meaningless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I think that's maybe what some people mean.
Yeah.
But it's like, and how do we know that? And don't just stop there. How do we know that? And maybe what's going to be most helpful is prove your statements when you make them.
Yeah.
Even when someone's suffering, you say, God loves you. What it feels like in that moment is, no, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And so you need to help remind them, man, here are the ways that you've seen God love you in your life.
Yep.
I know you're suffering, but please don't forget that.
Yep.
Please don't forget that God loves you. And ultimately, we know that in the gospel.
Yeah.
But you can have very tangible evidences.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I guess this is becoming a theme for all these cliches is, let's help people bank on specific promises in the Bible.
Yeah.
So my issue with let go, let God is it's too vague. So do the opposite of being vague, be specific. So, when someone's going through pain, instead of saying God will never give you more than you can handle, after you have said you're sorry about their pain and you just sat with them and cried with them, and I think that is going to vary based upon the level of pain. So that might be days, it might be weeks, it might be months. But I think eventually you come in with, or it could be minutes or hours, John 16:33, remember in this world we'll have tribulation, but we can take heart because Jesus has overcome the world.
Yeah.
Or Romans 8:32 is a great one. He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also along with him graciously give us all things?
Yeah.
So how do we know that our suffering isn't meaningless? We look to the cross. God didn't spare that for our good. So whatever you're going through, he's not being stingy on you.
Yeah.
So I'd say be specific, claim specific biblical promises on the let go and let God. If you're letting go of a specific, I'd almost prefer the Psalms, delight yourself in the Lord and he'll give you the desires of your heart.
Right.
And if you're delighting in the Lord, the desire of your heart is
the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say with the let go, let God, it's like maybe something that we should say, maybe not in the moment if someone's like really suffering through something, but to help them see like the thing you're letting go of is probably an idol. And when you're saying like let go and let God get that idol for you, we would say no. Your end goal should be God, not the thing that you want God to give you.
Yeah.
And now God may give you those things, but he may not.
Right.
But either way, the way we need to make sure our joy isn't tied in materialistic things because those things will go away.
Yeah.
But
well said.
But to help people see their joy should be wrapped in God, and that God should be the foundation and the source of their joy, and that can't be taken away.
Right. Right.
And so I think when people say let go and let God, really, when it's well intentioned, I think they're trying to say, hey, I see you have this idol in your life. Mm-hmm. I would say that instead, right? And do it kindly, but say that. Like, I think you are trying to make this new job your source of hope, but you'll never be satisfied with that, because that job can end, or you'll be fully immersed in it and it won't be enough for you, right?
It's well said. Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's good. Well, thanks for joining us for our conversation about these Christian cliches. We're not sure what we'll do next week, but one of my current favorites that have been added to us from thanks to Amelia Mafood is when someone dies and we say, God just earned a new angel. We might have to tackle that one next week, so we'll see.
I think we should, because that definitely is the picture painted to our culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
An angel just got its wings.
Yeah.
So angels and heaven and things of that nature next week. Thanks for joining us for Monday Musings this week. We hope you have a great one. Bye.